My name is Chris Robinson, and welcome to a special edition of the Real Conversation radio show. We are a brand new podcast and YouTube show. We are a group of young minority millennials making a podcast for and about the stories and lives of young minority millennials. Today we have a very special guest. It's our first time doing an interview with the Real Conversation show. We have a gentleman here. He's a motivational speaker. He's a choir director, an attorney, and the former assistant director, the public defender for the 18th Circuit Office of the Public Defender. Alton, how you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. Thank you for being here with us.
Not a problem.
And thank you for giving us the opportunity. So I wanted to start off with a little bit about yourself and just something light.
Okay.
So, and what I read about you, it said that you wanted to be a lawyer since you were 5 years old. So that's a pretty specific age. So did anything happen, or is there anything that brought you to that?
Nothing that I can think of particularly, but I remember when I was in elementary school and having that conversation with a principal at the school that I wanted to be a lawyer. And at that time, I really didn't even know what a lawyer was. I didn't know what an attorney was, and I until I became, well, maybe until I got into law school, I didn't know the difference between a lawyer and an attorney, because those have distinct differences as well.
What are they?
Well, a lawyer is a legal professional, someone that is learned in the law. And so, have you ever heard the term, well, many people use the term jailhouse lawyers to describe people that are incarcerated and that study the law. An attorney, however, is different because it is someone that has fulfilled the requirement to be able to represent people and practice law in a particular jurisdiction. And so while a lawyer might know things about the law because of their studies, an attorney can actually participate in the practice, because it is a felony to practice law if you're not an attorney and not certified by your jurisdiction to do so.
Okay. That's that show Suits is about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so exactly that. Okay. So at the same time, you're a motivational speaker. So you said you have a company that you do that.
I am. I have a company, Edmond Inspiration, website edmondinspiration.com, shameless plug. And I've been doing motivational speaking for quite some time before I ever had a company. But I believe that I founded the company back in 2013 and, applied for the LLC status in the state of Florida.
All right. So the public defender's office, was there something that attracted you to that? Because it sounds like with wanting to work in the public defender's office, doing motivational speaking, a part of what drives you and what you do, would you say is caring for people and being a part of?
I would definitely say that, and I would say that, a lot of the clients of the Office of Public Defender are the type of people that I grew up around, the type of people that I'm related to, my family, and so when I looked at a lot of my clients, I saw people that were very much similar to my own family, my own friends back home. And that's one of the things that attracted me to the Office of the Public Defender. Not only was I a trial attorney, and I love going to trial, I love trying cases, but I got to serve a community that I had a lot in common with.
Okay. So you had been, how long were you totally at the public defender's office?
Well, the 18th Circuit, I was there from April until February the 1st day of Black History Month is when I got fired.
Okay, so April of last year to February.
Yes, April 2016 until February 1st of this year.
Okay.
But I was at another public defender's office before then. I worked at the 9th Circuit office in Orange County, in downtown Orlando.
And so you would say you're generally happy with your career and your path moving forward being at the public defender's office?
I was. I love trying cases, and at the public defender's office, you'll try cases more than anywhere else you go.
All right. So happy in your job, long history of a good career in an industry that you enjoy, and 4 days ago, we get to the point where Florida Today has the headline, Public Defender Fired, says Black Lives Matter, tie raised eyebrows. So take me through Take me through that moment. So are you sitting at your desk? Or are you in the hallway? Is it?
Whew. Well, the moment when I was fired,
Hmm?
when I was fired, I was called into Blaze Tredis's office, who is the public defender. He's the elected official that runs the public defender's office. I was asked into his office, and when I went to his office, there was one gentleman who I know to be an investigator for the office, and he's armed pretty much all the time. He was seated in one chair on the opposite side of the room from the door, and there was another gentleman armed as well standing by the door as soon as I walked in. And then there was Blaze Tredis seated at the desk across from the gentleman that was seated in the chair. And I was asked to sit in the chair that was on the right side of that gentleman. So basically in between two men with guns, assuming that Blaze didn't have one himself.
Okay. And how did the conversation go? Was it sort of what is this? Was it sort of sit down and explain to you? Was it a conversation?
Not
or
at all.
Okay.
Not at all. It was right to the point. And I'm sorry to cut you off.
No,
but I got a little frustrated when I thought about it. Because that's probably what it should have been. You know, I probably should have been told the reasons or the reason why I was terminated. But Mr. Tredis got right to the point. You know, he said, I'm going to fire you. I asked him why. He said, you know, it's just not working out. I asked him if I was going to get anything in writing, you know, memorializing what happened.
Mm-hmm.
He said no. And so basically, you know, I was terminated on February the 1st, and he didn't give me any cause whatsoever. But it just so happened to be a day after I posted a status displaying my feelings about social issues in this country.
Okay. So, can you pronounce his name again? I want to make sure I get it right. It's Blaze
Tredis.
So Blaze Tredis. Mm-hmm. He's directly your boss. When you were at the public defender's office, you dealt with him on a daily basis?
No.
Did you? Okay, so you didn't.
No, he was the big boss over the entire office, but I had a supervisor, a misdemeanor supervisor, whose name is Doug Reynolds.
Okay.
And that's the gentleman that supervised all the misdemeanor attorneys, and there were about, I want to say 6 or 7 of us. And we were all on the first floor. The felony attorneys were up on the second floor, and Mr. Tredis' office was on the second floor. And so I rarely ever saw him.
Okay. Did you have, in the time that you did see him, did you have a comfortable relationship? Was it cordial in the office? Was there, or did you really not?
It was cordial. I mean, he was never rude to me or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, in him firing you, in the articles that I've read and what I've seen on television, they cite 4 things that led to you being fired. I kind of want to get into each specific thing, but I'll just sort of round them off. Incident with a loaded weapon left on your desk. You were posting about specific conversations being had in the office on Facebook and social media. The Black Lives Matter tie, and posting on Facebook while you were at work.
Okay.
So the first thing I'll ask you about is the incident with the gun being left on your desk. Now, I'll be the first to tell you it sounds nuts.
It
does.
does.
We live in a time where people get shot up at work all the time. So me at home, even though I had met you before, and I was like, that sounds...
That's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
What is this guy thinking?
Yeah. So what is the context? How did that come about?
All right. And I actually explained this to the guy at Fox, and he put none of that on the Fox newscast. But this is how the situation happened. First of all, let me say this. Mr. Tredis is very supportive of people in the office lawfully carrying firearms. He's even paid for members of his office to go to seminars and learn more about weapons and apply to get concealed carry licenses. And so he was absolutely supportive of people in the office carrying their weapons.
What's the reason for that? Is there
No particular
a
reason.
dangerous job?
I mean, you have a constitutional right to be able to carry your weapon, and that right is restricted by the state in terms of the requirements that they could give for you to be able to get a license. You know, of course, certain crimes will make you ineligible, but you know, it's a constitutional right. And there are certain workplaces that will set rules that say that you can't carry a weapon here or something like that. And if someone found out that you carried a weapon, they can fire you if that was against the rules, but there's no criminal penalty for it. You can't go to jail for it because it wouldn't be against the law if you did so lawfully, if you had a license. And I do have my license to carry a weapon. I've had my license since 2013. Doesn't expire until, I believe, 2019. And so I carried my weapon to the office lawfully, and there was never an issue because I kept it concealed generally. On this particular day, I was in a rush. I came to work. I came into my office to get my things to go to court. I took my weapon off my hip. I put it on top of the table, on top of my desk, and I kept gathering my things. In my rush, in my haste, I left my weapon on top of my desk. I left my office, and I closed the door behind me when I left my office to go to court. Now, the only person that I could have reasonably expected to enter my office was my secretary. Her name is Kathy. But my secretary, Kathy, she knows I have a license to carry concealed. She knows I carry my weapon to work. We've talked about it. On this particular day, when I was in court, someone came into my office without my permission who was not my secretary. And that begs the question, what was this person doing in my office in the first place? Why were they there? What was their purpose? Because when I got there, you know, someone said to me that she was in my office to drop off some paperwork. I didn't see any paperwork on my desk. Mm-hmm. And so, you know.
Just like a courier or?
This was a different secretary, a secretary that's not my secretary. And so if she had paperwork, I would have thought she would have given it to my secretary, who knows me, who's comfortable with me. But this particular person went into my office. She saw my weapon on my desk. She doesn't know me. She doesn't know I have a license to carry concealed. And so she reported that to my supervisor. And that's how it became a thing. And so he called me to his office and he talked to me about it. But there was never any issue about illegality. There was no issue about, you know, me presenting a danger or threatening anybody or anything like that. You know, it was really, the only issue was someone came in my office that didn't know I should have a weapon and that I legally carry a weapon, and that person freaked out because they don't know me. Mm-hmm. And so that's really what happened. But when I went to Mr. Tredis' office, he scolded me about the weapon, and he also talked to me about my Black Lives Matter tie that he heard I had been wearing. I didn't have it on that particular day. But he'd heard from another coworker that I wear a Black Lives Matter tie to work. And he told me not to wear that tie and not to talk about Black Lives Matter stuff in his office. And then he docked my pay. And then he said that if I have to talk to you again, I'm going to fire you. None of this was in writing, and there were no witnesses. And so there is absolutely no evidence that that conversation ever happened aside from what Mr. Tredis said. And when he was interviewed by Fox, he said that he restricted me from wearing the tie, but he never fessed up to the fact that he also restricted me from speaking about Black Lives Matter, which is a direct violation of my First Amendment right, freedom of speech, as well as the tie. That's also speech. Even though it's printed speech, still speech.
So, in some of the things that you said in the article that in Florida Today, this was one of the ones that I read, you said that there's a lot of political talk that happens in the office. Is that, which is odd because you're saying that you were told not to talk about your politics or an issue that you have with the Black Lives Matter movement and the way people have been treated. Have you seen anyone else or heard of anyone else being reprimanded for having political conversation in the office?
Never. But it happens. I've heard a lot of political conversation in the office, and there were even young ladies during the Trump and Hillary campaign. There were even young ladies, white women in the office, that came to work with Hillary campaign buttons on their chests. And Mr. Tredis saw them with those buttons on their chest, not a word. They were never reprimanded. They were never dragged into the office, nothing. And that was clothing. That was apparel, just like a tie. Nothing. I'm with Hillary. Nothing. They were never reprimanded. And there were 3 young ladies. I'm not going to say their names, but they work at the office, and nothing ever happened to them.
Now,
The only difference between them is that they were white women. I'm a black man. I don't know. You put 2 and 2 together.
well, we will be back. We're going to take a quick break. So come back, and this is the Real Conversation Show with our special guest, Alton. We thank you so much for being here,